It is in general, it is forbidden to carry on Shabbos from a private domain into a public domain and from a public domain into a private domain. And we're just going to keep this as simple as possible for the moment, which means a private domain is going to be your house, your apartment. If you're living in a house, then it normally includes the garden around it. And a public domain is going to be anything outside of that.
Outside your apartment, is that considered
Where outside of your apartment are you talking about? If you're talking about outside your front door, yeah. Public. So the emes is it's a little bit of a problem. If you're living in a Jewish apartment block, then the chances are that your apartment block, the whole thing, will be considered to be a private domain, and that's okay. You can carry in the stairwells. You can carry.
Even though everybody Shem Shabbos, then you can control it.
Yeah, it isn't. Yeah, the truth is, you don't. It doesn't have to be that everybody is Shomer Shabbos, but they have to make something called an Erev Chatzeres, which we'll talk about that as well in Mitzvah Hashem. It's just everybody coming together and agreeing that the whole building belongs to everybody.
Oh, that's what they do.
Huh?
That's how they do it for an apartment.
For an apartment block.
Okay.
Right. And then when you get into the block, so then you can carry. Then you don't have a problem with whatever you want to go to your neighbours for Kiddush or something. Then you can take your key and you can go across and you can come back again. That's not a problem. But in general, it's forbidden to carry. It's forbidden to carry anything. The idea, many people sometimes make the mistake of thinking that when we're talking about carrying, so we're talking about hard work. I understand that it's forbidden to take a sack of potatoes out and take a sack of potatoes to shul on Shabbat. I understand that, but what is wrong with carrying a key? Which is it's a valid question, right? For sure. So the answer, of course, is that the halacha is talking about a concept of carrying. And it doesn't matter anymore what it is that you're carrying. It's not going to make a differentiation between something which is heavy and something which is light, something which is more important, something which is less important, right? I've had discussions in inverted commas with people over the years where they've wanted to try to they're trying to say that carrying a front door key for sure is okay, because first of all it doesn't weigh anything, and secondly it's very, very important. What does God want? Leave the front key under the flower pot outside the front door, and then the thieves will come and they'll, is that what God really wants? No, of course not, right? So it's okay for me to carry my front door key. No, it's not okay to carry the front door key. It's not. What should you do with it? Well, I don't know. If putting it underneath the flower pot outside the front door is not a great idea, so find somebody else's flower pot to put it underneath.
In New York, I had a
tie-in. Ah, yeah. We'll talk about that in a minute, right? Did you have a tie as well?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. How do you go about? Some people. So you don't have anywhere to leave your key. What am I supposed to do now? You walk out of the front door. The front door's going to lock closed. What now? So there are various possibilities of being able to transport your key together with you. Depending, let's have a look and see what there is. The most famous of all of these options is something called a key belt, which is normally a belt made out of pieces of elastic that clip together, and along the way you can add keys. In between, where the elastic meets each other, there's a place that you can put a key, and that allows you to wear the key. You're now wearing the key as part of your belt. Now you need to know something very important over here about halacha. It is not okay to wear a key belt if you're already wearing a belt and you're just putting the key belt on top of it. That's not okay. Which means the key belt has to take the place of your regular belt. Or, if you want, the key belt can be pulled up to sit on top of your tie, if you're wearing one, right? In order to keep your tie in place, that's also considered to be okay. But it's not okay to wear the key belt on top of your regular belt, because then it's clear that the belt's it's only being worn in order to transport the key, which means the belt's got to be doing something, right? That's one possibility. Another possibility is, like Rabbi Moshe said, to have a tie pin that's made out of your front key. Either it slips in somehow, or A friend of my father's, he was like a real spitzy guy. He had one made out of gold, actually. A key, his front door key was made out of gold, and he had a thing that it clipped onto over here, and it clipped onto the tie. And I must admit, as a kid, this was like the coolest thing around. I'm telling you, it was like the coolest.
People even put diamonds in it. Some people want to be
Ostentatious.
Yeah. If you grow up in
Well,
an area.
I have to tell you that as a kid, this was like the coolest thing around. It really was. But as I got a little bit older, I thought to myself, this is like the weirdest thing around. This is like the guy looks odd. Walking around with a golden front door key. How's that for like a to show the thieves that I've got a gold front door key and I'm not home right now. So here, maybe go around to my house and take the rest of what I've got. Which is, it's a bit whatever. It's a bit odd. Anyway, that's also a possibility to have your have this thing built into your tie pin. It's an Indian over here. Now, you might be saying to yourselves, although I'm looking around the room and I'm not convinced anybody's saying anything to themselves. You just be quiet and listen to Shabbat. You might be saying to yourselves, this is all like ridiculous. You're not allowed to carry, then you're not allowed to carry, right? So why how come all of a sudden it's okay to wear a belt that's got a key in it, or it's okay to wear a tie pin that's got a key in it? Why is that considered to be okay? And the answer is because, again, we're talking over here, we're not talking about our perception of what's okay and what's not. We're talking about a halachic dimension of what's okay. Which means that you've got to, certain things that you have to be careful about. If that, nowadays I think less and less people are using cloth handkerchiefs, right? But in when I was growing up, many people had cloth hankies, and these people could never understand why their glasses, why they couldn't see clearly, because they were always taking their cloth hankies after they sneezed, and then they were trying to clean their glasses as well. Is it any surprise? Any surprise that they couldn't see properly? No, it's not at all. But the Indian over here again, I think it's very important to stress, because very often people get caught up in the details, and they miss the point, which it's got nothing to do with how heavy something is. It's got nothing to do with how important something is. It's only to do with whether it's permissible to carry or it's not permissible to carry. And if it's not, then it's not permissible to carry anything. Did you want to ask something, or were you just drying your nail polish?
I want to ask you a question.
I wanted to ask something. My nail polish has been dry for a while.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
On Shabbos, a lot of the shuls in the United States, especially the older people, they have tabak, which they put in. Is that,
What's the question? Can
they use it? Can they have something like that? Isn't that muksa or whatever?
No, tabak, snuff, right? Tabak is snuff?
Right. So what about
snuff? First of all, I can't believe you're asking this question. What are childhood memories? Are you kidding? Shul was like this warm. That's why everybody had. I just realised that's why everybody had hankies, because everyone was so busy sniffing snuff that they were sneezing all over the place, right? But no, there's no problem whatsoever with sniffing snuff. Try saying that one without having drunk a couple. There's no problem with sniffing snuff on Shabbos. It's not muktzah. In fact, according to some opinions, if you have to make a bracha over it, it's one of the ways of being able to make 100 brachas. It's not so sure whether you do, whether you should or whether you shouldn't.
Pocket square. Where does that fall in? Is it considered a piece of clothing that is
over here?
culturally accepted?
What do you mean? Where does it fall in?
Yeah, no, for Shabbos and carrying, is it considered part of culturally accepted clothing? Is it carrying still?
It's an interesting. It really is an interesting question. I'm not quite sure how to phrase this, but amongst the more orthodox communities, it's considered to be carrying, even though it's only worn as a piece of clothing. And that's not the hanky that most people are using. Otherwise you wouldn't have it sticking out your front pocket like that. It's interesting that when I was a kid, there was at some point there were people who, it was a fashion thing. It was nothing to do with Shabbos. Who actually these things were sewn in permanently.
Right.
Just just like the top, and it was arranged, the way they were, and that would be okay. That's not a problem. Once it's been sewn in and it's a part of the clothing itself, then that's okay. Otherwise, it's considered to be carrying, and you should not be using one. Well, these things coming back into fashion.
I've seen them. Also, do we need to put tzitzis on our pocket squares, or do we need to like cut off a corner or something?
Say that? Oh no, it's too small.
It's too small.
Too small. Tzitzis have to be a certain minimum amount because it's a four-cornered. A pocket, you know what a pocket square is? It's a square that goes in your pocket. Yeah.
It's as big as a hanky,
It's as big as a hanky. Whatever. I mean, it's too small to be obligated in the mitzvah of tzitzis. I'll tell you, for example, what could be a problem if you wear a poncho.
Poncho.
Poncho's a South American thing that's like it's a four-cornered, with a hole in the middle, and you put it over your head. That needs to have tzitzis on it because that's a four-corner garment.
Pretty cool.
But only if it's made out of wool or linen, right?
Well, if it's made out of some kind of synthetic material, then you don't have to worry about it.
You could,
If
but
it's-
you don't have to put tzitzit on.
No, I mean you
Most of them
shouldn't.
are made out of-
You shouldn't.
Well, you
I don't
shouldn't
know,
put
most of them are made out of
You
wool.
shouldn't put tzitzit on if it's not made of wool.
On a synthetic, if it's made out of nylon or something, I don't. As far as my memory serves me correct, I don't think that you have a mitzvah of putting tzitzis on something.
But can you fulfill the mitzvah by doing it?
What if you cut? Oh yeah.
I think it's got to be natural.
Because I got a tzitzit once, like one of those things that they give out, like I don't know.
You want to throw a verb in here somewhere?
Yeah.
Come on, let's turn this into a sentence. Come on.
Yeah, I'm looking for a word.
Is a verb?
No, not promoter.
What?
Not promoter. What's no Jeff Seidel? What do you call that?
What would you call Jeff Seidel? I mean, I
What
would
he
call
does.
him outreach.
Outreach, yeah.
Outreach.
So
Yeah.
he gives out tzitzit, but they're not made out of wool or linen.
They're probably made out of cotton, aren't they?
Call about this netty stuff.
Yeah, the
Like the Under Armour type
It's
thing.
probably what's anyone know what it's made out of?
There are these days like tzitzis that are made, I think, very synthetic material.
Hold on a second. It's crisscrossed like that.
Yeah, well,
I think so. I can bring it in.
wicker. People wear it straight on.
What's it made out of? Anyone know what it's made out of?
Must be synthetic.
Doesn't look like it's wool.
Is it
or linen.
washable?
Sure.
Wool,
Yeah,
linen,
that'd be-
wool,
it's
linen,
like
cotton.
I think.
No, if it's
Cotton?
washable,
Is cotton-
it's
Cotton is fine.
Oh,
Yeah, but cotton is not washable. I mean,
Maybe it's made out of
washable,
cotton.
but
I'm
it's
just
not.
wondering.
Maybe.
It
I don't
sounds
know.
like
Need
a
to take a look at it. It
polyester
sounds
rayon.
interesting.
Oh,
It's polyester rayon.
if you cut one of the corners,
Yeah.
you don't have to put scissors on anymore, right?
Yeah. But the chance like this, we're commanded that if you're going to wear a four-corner garment, you need to put tzitzis on it. We're not commanded to wear a four-corner garment. The Jewish people took upon themselves a long, long time ago to make sure to wear a four-corner garment in order to be able to fulfill the mitzvah tzitzis. Which means that it would be a lot simpler. Oh, if you're talking about a poncho, for example, and you don't want to put tzitzis on your poncho, so yeah, if you would cut one of the corners, so then you don't have four corners. Now you've got five. You've just made five corners. What?
Is that where the expression "cutting corners" comes from?
Never thought about that. That's very deep. No. No. Nice try. Anyway,
Comes from pear, right?
huh?
Comes from pear.
What, cutting corners?
Yeah. I got
Hey, there you're not cutting corners.
You can't
Right.
cut the corners of your
I don't know. You know what? Where does it come from? I don't know. Where does it come from? If somebody wants to ask Rabbi Google at some point where the phrase cutting corners comes from,
Jewish?
must be.
Actually-
Somebody that bright has got to be, no?
Can we get back
They
to
are.
Aaron?
Oh, yeah. Shabbos. Carrying on Shabbos. I'm sorry. Anyway, of course, all of this started because we got. It wasn't my fault. We moved off onto Christmas trees, and that was nothing to do with me. But yeah, sniffing stuff is okay on Shabbos. It's not muktzah, but carrying it is, right? So what was?
How can you sniff snuff on Yom Kippur?
because you're not eating it.
But it's
There's
still,
only-
it
there's-
still goes. It still goes.
No,
in
there's
your
a
stomach.
prohibition against eating on Yom Kippur, unless you eat through your nose. Then there's no problem with sniffing snuff.
Why can't you smoke things in Shabbat if it's already lit?
It was already because there's a problem with making things. When you smoke, right, you're making things burn down quicker
Yeah.
by drawing out whatever it is, all that poison and toxic waste that's killing you. You're actually making the thing burn down quicker, which is a problem on Shabbos.
What about those electronic cigarettes? If you could make one that was like always burning and had like a Shabbos mode.
Yeah,
could you
I don't.
potentially-
I mean, you know what? In theory, would it be okay to do it? Possibly. There is a concept inside of Shabbos called uvda lechol, which means not to do things on Shabbos that you do during the week. Which means it could be that you're going to fall into the category of doing something. Bless you.
Onion, somebody.
It could be that you're going to.
Time, isn't it?
Huh?
You know,
There's a secondary problem with Maris Ayin. You know, I was on a plane and somebody had one of the electronic cigarettes,
Wow.
and he was trying to explain to the stewardess that it's not a cigarette. You know, it's okay. And she's telling him, no, you know that you're not allowed to smoke. No smoking. So he had to put it away. Is there a problem with Maris Ayin? Yeah, there's a concept inside of a halacha of something where you're doing something which is permissible, but it looks wrong. So the classic example is you go into a shop on Shabbos to find out what the time is, right? And somebody may see you and imagine, you know, Khalila, they may imagine that you've gone in there in order to to buy something on Shabbos. So you shouldn't be doing things like that. Smoking an electronic cigarette on Shabbos, let's work on the premise that you can get past all the various. I've got no idea how these things work actually. Aside from just putting them on, what happens when you suck on it? What does it
vaporizes
do?
nicotine.
How's it doing that?
Heat.
Heat. If it's heat, then it's going to be a problem anyway because of the
Yeah, but I
problem
was
of.
saying if you can get
Okay,
around
let's say you
so-
can have, I don't know, you've got the thing is working continuously perhaps.
Even if it wasn't like you're just like sucking on a nicotine stick.
Why not just wear a patch?
I'm just trying to think of a product.
no, that's a good question.
Why don't you just not smoke
Also,
Fighting, huh?
patches are usually way more nicotine.
all
than
week
smokers'
round?
intake.
What?
Just don't smoke.
Well, I mean, if that were, I don't smoke, but
I don't believe this. We just spent 10 minutes talking about and you don't even smoke. This is ridiculous. Cut it out.
Erev, Rabbi.
what's an A-root?
What's an Arab? Well, how did you get to that question? Okay, so what do? If you want to be able to carry, there is a halachic method. Now, this is going to sound like a loophole, and please don't misunderstand. It is not a loophole at all. It is a perfectly sound halachic method. In order to be able to carry outside of your immediate home, it is permissible to put up something called an Eruv. An Eruv encompasses a certain amount, a certain area. Anything within that Eruv is now considered to be a Reshus HaRabim, it's a Reshus HaYachid. It's now considered to be a private domain, and it's permissible inside of that area to carry from one place to another without any problem whatsoever. So, for example, if you live in an area that has an Eruv, there is no problem whatsoever with you locking your front door and taking the key in your pocket to shul and coming back home again because you've got an Eruv. What is an Eruv? So if I were to ask you, how do you define Reshus HaYachid, how would you define a personal domain? We would all say the same thing, right? Something that's got a barrier going around it, right? So when you've got a house and your house has got 4 walls, external walls, so it's clear that that's your personal domain, right? When you've got like a garden, you're surrounded by garden. In your house is sitting in the middle, and you've got gardens on all 4 sides, and normally you have a hedge going all the way around. It's clear that that belongs to you, right? That's your domain. How do you turn that into
A hedge is only loosely connected. Does that make it
loosely connected?
Yeah, I mean branches growing into each other. Then there is no
Oh,
connection
yeah,
between
but
plant
the
and
hedge, I mean, again, if the hedge is a well-grown hedge,
plant.
there's no problem whatsoever with using it as an Erev.
Yeah.
If you prefer, a wicker work, what's it called, a wicker fence going all the way around. However, whatever your picture is of a like a homestead, right? That's okay. That's great. But I'm talking right now visually, right?
Okay.
It's clear that belongs to you.
Yeah.
So it's obvious that when you go out of your front door and your kids are playing outside in the front garden and they're kicking a ball around and they're carrying things about, it's clear that that's your domain, right? That there's no, it's not complicated. How do you extend that domain into something much wider? So you don't have to build a wall all the way around what it is that you want to encompass. It's possible to build a halakhic wall. Now, an halakhic wall is not necessarily made out of bricks and mortar. A halakhic wall is something which is going to be defined by what it's doing, which means that there are poles that are going to be put up not too far apart from each other, with a very thin wire going at the top of the pole. It's got to be very tight, this wire, going from one pole to the next. And whatever is being, and it's got to be connected, the whole thing's got to be connected. Right, which means that you can't put up a couple of poles over here and a wire and then that's it, you've done your bit. But let's say this whole table, you want to encompass the whole table, everything should be included. You've got to have these poles and wires going all the way around in order to be able to turn this whole area into your Rishus HaYachid, into your personal domain. How's it going to play out?
How's that going to help?
How's it going to help? Because now halachically, this has got a din of being, it's considered to be connected. It's all one thing now. Once it becomes one thing, I can now carry with inside of it.
You always got this like bottom piece, like meter and a half up from the bottom, connected to the pole, welded to it, and it's exactly like opposing one and the other pole.
Yeah.
Is like facing it in the same way.
Yeah.
What does that do?
That's what that's doing is that it's turning it into something a little bit more substantial. Inside of the halacha, whether it is needed or whether it's not needed, it's not so clear. But what you'll find in many, as the truth, I think if you step outside the yeshiva, you'll see that the Erev comes to an end just before the main road, right? And you'll see one of these poles on the corner.
But can we carry in Yerushalayim?
Can you carry Yerushalayim? So it's a good question. The Rabbanut in Yerushalayim has an Erev that goes all the way around Yerushalayim. The Rabbaniyut in the various cities around Israel have put up enormous Erevs. They go all the way around the various cities. So Yerushalayim, can you carry Yerushalayim? So some people say yes and some people say no. The Badatz has its own Erev, which does not encompass as much as the Erev around Yerushalayim does. But each city has got its own Erev. So Bnei Brak's got its own Erev. Tel Aviv has its own Erev.
Tel Zion has its own.
Tel Zion has its own Erev.
Because Yerushalayim is a walled city, so I thought that was...
But in Yerushalayim, the old city itself, you don't need to do anything at all because you've got the walls going around, and that's the ultimate Erev, right? But outside of the old city, what do you do now? The people outside of the old city can't rely on the walls of the old city to be their Erev because they're not within the Erev. You hear what the problem is? You've got to be within wherever this Erev is. Right, so again, you live within the old city, you don't have any problem whatsoever. Everything is fine. If you live outside of the old city, so again, the Badatz has got its own Erev and it's smaller than the Erev that the whole of Yerushalayim has got. You want to use it, use it. You don't want to use it, don't use it. It's absolutely fine. There's no, seriously, it's a matter of what your relationship with Erevs are in general. Just before the questions, an Erev does not have to use poles and wire. It's possible to use various bits of topography as well. So, for example, if you've got buildings that run along the end of one side of a neighborhood, and after that nobody wants after that the Eruv to be. Let's say it's sitting on the edge of something and that's it. Nobody's gonna go past that point. Then it's enough. You can use the line of the houses as one side of your Eruv. That's okay. You can use today, Baruch Hashem, putting up Eruvs in cities is less complicated because cities have lighting systems and you can string your wire from the various lampposts that are up. That's also okay. It doesn't have to be, the Eruv doesn't have to be comprised of things which were made specifically from the beginning, were made as an Eruv. Right? You can use things that are already there. Now, what you have to be careful of, again, it's not things that we don't have to worry about these things because the people that are putting up the Eruvs, they're the ones that are doing the worrying. What needs to be worried about is what do you do in a city when you've got a Reshus Harabim, you've got something which is designated as a public thoroughfare, public domain, running through the area that you want to make the Eruv within. The classic example that's used is they wanted to put an Eruv up in the Flatbush area, in Borough Park and Flatbush, and Ocean Parkway runs straight down the middle, and Rav Moshe Feinstein ruled that Ocean Parkway was a Reshus Harabim. What is a Reshus Harabim? It's got at least 600,000 people going on it in one day. Now, 600,000 people is not as much as it sounds because we're talking about two directions, which is 300,000 in each direction. And we're talking about multiple, there are buses and coaches and cars. And you start adding all these things up and you can see that it's not inconceivable whatsoever that a major thoroughfare could be considered a Reshus Harabim. It's impossible to incorporate a Reshus Harabim, a public domain, into a private domain. And Rav Moshe Feinstein ruled that it was forbidden to set up an Eruv which included Ocean Parkway, which means if they wanted to have, they could take the Eruv up to Ocean Parkway and they could start a new Eruv on the other side of Ocean Parkway, but not to incorporate Ocean Parkway into the Eruv.
It's surprising because he okayed Flatbush and Borough Park. Flatbush, there was a big argument, but he okayed the ones in Queens.
The one in Queens was a lot less complicated.
Yeah, but we had Queens Boulevard. Which is
Again, I don't remember the details. I remember the details of the Ocean Parkway that Rav Moshe ruled that it was no good. Rav Moshe ruled that the Eruv that they put around in the Lower East Side was also okay.
That's true.
Right, but over there, I don't know. It could be that maybe the Queens Boulevard, maybe it's not as big, maybe it's not as busy. I don't know.
Much busier than Ocean Parkway.
Yeah, maybe in those days when the thing was going up. I don't know exactly.
Six lanes, both going.
Okay, I don't know.
That
Again,
extends all the way to Kew Gardens. And in our
Good.
shul, we even had the Arab, and we had a light on top of the building.
oh, right. What's
red?
yeah? What's got to be a great source of concern once you've got an Eruv up and running? A great source of concern for everybody is what state is it in? Because if any one of these wires get broken, the Eruv is no longer kosher. You can't use it anymore. Right? It's got to be
Or
fixed.
a red light.
And there was for example, in Yerushalayim, I think probably in all the cities actually, I imagine over here in Eretz Yisrael, they go around on Erev Shabbos. There are groups of people that their job is to go around the Eruv and to make sure that all the wires are still where they're supposed to be. That's why, if you've ever wondered, normally you'll see in the wires that are strung between the posts, there's normally a bit of ribbon. Right? Because the wires are difficult to see. And when you're Erev Shabbos, you're just running along trying to make sure that all the wires are still where they are. If you can see that ribbon up there, then you know that the thing is attached from one end to the other. If it's not there, then it means that it's not. There have been occasions where it's, when there's been a heavy snowfall, for example, on Shabbos morning, and the Eruv has come down. What do? You go to shul. You've got your buggies and your kids, and you've even you even brought your great grandfather with you as well in his wheelchair. And now all of a sudden they're making an announcement. The Erev is down. What do you do? So if needs be, you should stay in shul, and hopefully there'll be some food in there. And that's where you need to stay until after Shabbos, because it's a problem to come out to carry anything, even though it was okay when you went there. On the way back, it's not okay anymore.
Just to say, in my community, there is a volunteer Erev maintenance committee, and they
Good, very good.
regularly go around.
Very good, right? They probably do it once a week, right, on Erev Shabbos. In Har Nof, which has got a very large Erev of its own going around it, so they have there's I think it's a company that comes by of Hasidic, Yerushalmi guys. They come by and they check it out, and that's the way that it needs to be.
Ours, everybody looks at red light, green light.
Yeah, good. That's good. When you've got a situation like that, then if you've got the ability to be able to warn people. My brother lives in London. And in London, there's an Erev in London as well, or parts of London have an Erev inside of it. And every Erev Shabbos, they get a text telling them that the Erev is good. Right, which is...
I think in the United States, same thing.
I'm sure, yeah, I'm sure. Which means that,
The Erev is up.
these are things that you need to be very concerned about. Again, Baruch Hashem, it's not so you don't have to go around and check it yourself because somebody's doing it, somebody's making sure, but you do need to know that the Erev is okay. Yeah.
Is there a concept where a walled city has enough Jews in it that the whole city becomes a public domain? Or is it still considered a private domain within an Erev?
I mean, first of all, practically speaking, you need 600,000 people. Is there such a thing as a walled city?
Is it 600,000 because of the man?
Yeah, what came out of Egypt. Aside from that, it's not a problem. I mean, there are cities. Again, there are cities. Tel Aviv. Here in Yerushalayim, there's also more than 600,000 Jews. They have an Erev going around it, and it's fine. It's absolutely fine.
Well, we don't have any food fair like Ocean Park. We don't have that.
Over here, no. Interestingly enough, in the Tel Aviv area, there is a halachic question mark about walking from Bnei Brak to. There's a large hospital called Tel HaShomer. Tel HaShomer is on the other side of something called Geah. Geah is a very large Ocean Parkway-like thorough. It's really a highway that cuts through and separates the two areas to the end of Ramat Gan. So according to many poskim, if somebody is walking from Bnei Brak to go and visit somebody in Tel HaShomer, they shouldn't carry anything, because once you get to Ramat Gan, you've got to cross over that Rishus HaRabim to get over into the other areas, and so that could be a problem. Right here in Israel, do you know what? I don't have a clue. There's also something called the Ayalon Freeway, which runs through Tel Aviv. Yeah. I don't know if that has a din of being a Rishus HaRabim. Actually, I don't know how many people are going through it. It's a pretty busy street. I think it's like 600,000 people is like 10% of Israel's population. So, I don't know, that sounds like an awful lot to be traveling along one road. I don't know, it's worth looking into perhaps. Anyway, once the Erev is up, so there should be no misunderstanding over here. Once the Erev is up and running, you're allowed to carry, but you're not allowed to carry anything that you want. You can only carry things that you're going to need, right? Which means that, you need your front door key, you can carry your front door key. Do you need, I'm trying to think of something, ridiculous, but, snuff? No, for sure you need snuff. That's Yeah, maybe it's the other way around, right? For sure you need snuff, but your front door key, I don't know, maybe you could, you snuff, if you sniff enough snuff, then you don't care about your front door key anyway, but...
Sweet and low.
sweet and low, yeah.
Talis you can carry,
Yeah, if you've got an Erev, you can carry your talis. You don't have to wear your talis. You can carry your talis to shul.
but you can also wear it and forget about the area.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want is going to be okay. I'm trying. I can't really think of anything, but
Sheep.
sheep. Yeah.
What's with you and sheep, man?
They're so cute. I just want to be a shepherd.
Okay.
Do
Wait,
it.
you want to be a
You do that.
shepherd?
Alright.
Sounds like a good life.
The greatest leaders in Jewish history were shepherds. Avram Avinu and Yitzchak and Yaakov and
So y'all remember me.
Yosef and
Yeah.
Moshe and David.
If you can do that. Come
We,
back
we
and
look
talk
we
to
look
you.
forward to hearing great things about you, really. When you become, the leader of the Jewish people, we'll be able to tell everybody, it was here that he revealed his aspirations. we were here when he revealed,
I'm sitting in front of him.
when he sneezed.
What would be a good example of something you wouldn't want to be carrying? Like maybe a children's toy or something like that would be.
You know what? Maybe you don't have a kid right now who needs this toy. So why it's not it's what's the idea? The idea is it's not a blanket thing. Just because it's okay to carry, it doesn't mean that you can carry anything.
Can you carry like a pepper spray, knife, or gun for protection?
If there is a real dimension of pikuach nefesh, then for sure you're allowed to carry pepper spray or even a gun.
And there is here, right?
Here in Israel, in general, I think so. Again, to carry a gun over here, you need to have a license and go through all of that. But if you want to carry something with you to make sure, just to feel more comfortable, you're walking back late after having eaten in places, and you just want to feel a little bit safer. If you really want to feel safer, you should carry a safer.
Butter knife.
But failing that, pepper spray. Pepper spray will do.
Former pretty big.
Carry it,
Huh?
say mace or pepper spray.
Yeah, where there's an Erev, it's okay. Again, if there's danger. So here, like the situation as it is right now in Yerushalayim is very uncertain, right? We're all in a certain, so it would be okay to carry something with you. I would recommend not carrying a knife on you, simply because if you get stopped by the police, they'll probably arrest you for carrying a weapon.
Well,
What?
I'm Jewish.
It's for protection. They can arrest you for that.
I mean, if you're walking around with a weapon,
You're a foreigner, probably.
yeah.
I mean, there's
You could take the
primary
question you would-
instrument as
What?
everything.
You could take
has
the
been
police
starting up.
station question.
Oh, you're Jewish? Oh, you're fine.
No.
You kill
But
animals,
that would be okay. It's interesting in London now. Many of the shuls have security. Shabbos morning, it's permissible to have. They've got a whole different kinds of systems, but of course, security systems require walkie-talkies, right? Some kind of a communication system. So they've got some now that are simpler to use on Shabbos than other kinds. Hatzalah, right? Pikuach nefesh. You've got people wandering around on Shabbos. In my shul, we have. It's not a very big shul. There's maybe 90 families. Maybe we've got 4 Hatzalah members, medics, and they're always on call. And you might hear all of a sudden halfway through davening and Shabbos morning, something coming through on the walkie-talkie. Anything like that is permissible. That's permissible to do. Again, ways to do it. The best way to do it, because it's Shabbos. How to do it, what to do it, when to do it. Those are details that have to be worked out. But the concept itself of being able to have something like that for pikuach nefesh is.
There's no error.
What do you do if there's no erev? It's interesting that. As far as I can remember, for example, in London, where they also have a Hatzalah. So what do? Is that they have walkie-talkies in various locations, which are set at volumes that can be heard, and they've got also one shul, at least one shul that I know of, they've also got red lights, and when the phone rings, which is a dedicated line just for Hatzalah, when the phone rings, so there's a very obvious red light that starts flashing in the Beis HaMedrash itself, and at that point, the medics start moving off to try and find out what's going on, and then either they leave or they stay. Once a call has come through, right? Even if there's no Erev, once a call has come through and there's something that's taking place, then whatever needs to be done can be done. Without being concerned, which means you can't have a medic rushing off to go and help somebody who's just had a heart attack, but he didn't bring anything with him because it's Shabbos. I can't carry. I'm sorry. That's no good. Yeah.
What if, in that same scenario occurring last week in Harno, what would have happened if, let's say they're just beginning Amida, and the red light goes off?
Stop. You stop. You go. You listen. If it's possible, go back to your place and carry on from wherever you've left off. If it's not possible, just carry on davening wherever you're standing at that moment. And if you need to be, then just go. Which means there's a call of some kind. You don't wait.
Is that individual choice? I mean, is that something that?
No, no. That's a universal thing. Which means that if you've got somebody who's a medic, and he's able to help, and his walkie-talkie goes off in the middle of the Amida, you just and he's needed.
Yeah.
You just go. That's it. Finished.
It's his responsibility.
For sure. It's not a choice. It's an obligation.
I saw Hatzalah a lot of times in our shul.
Yeah, for sure.
Boom, they left it and goodbye. They went.
For sure. That's yeah.
Erev, I want to ask you. My brother has Sephardi in-laws, and they don't really rely on the Erev as we know it over here. Why is that? And what other sorts of Erevs are there? Like, what's the problem of relying on the Erev?
I don't. I've got no idea why. What their particular reason is for not relying on the Erev, I don't know. There's no great differentiation between the Sephardi and the Ashkenazi poskim over here about what the Erev is supposed to look like. Some poskim are unhappy with an Erev, for example, an Erev which encompasses a whole city, like the whole of Yerushalayim. Huge, enormous parts of Yerushalayim are covered by the Erev, because they feel that that's not really what the din of Erev is all about, which is why some people are unhappy about relying on the Rabbanut's Erev simply because it's so large. But again, there are inside of Yerushalayim there are different Erevs that have been set up in different places by different organizations. The Badatz has got its own Erev. Different neighborhoods have got their own Erev as well. My brother lives in a street. It's a cul-de-sac, which means it goes around. It goes around the corner, but it doesn't go out anywhere. It's just and all the residents together. It's a very Jewish street, and all the residents together put up an Erev over there. I'm not sure they asked permission, but they just did it anyway. And so even before the Erev in London went up, for years they had their Erev where the kids could all go out and play in the streets, and mothers could take their buggies out into the street over there. They didn't have to be concerned because they had their own Erev. So that's something, again, when you've got a cul-de-sac, it's a reasonably non-complicated thing to do, right? Because you really just have to put up something called Tzuras HaPetach. It's got to have an opening, like a door-like opening with the two poles and the string going across the wire going across the top, and then going around. But I don't know. I never actually asked him how they did it, but I would imagine they probably did it using the backs of all the houses that are involved in the Erev over there. That's definitely doable.
In Europe, what do they do? I think nobody carry
Where?
in Europe.
In Europe, it depends.
I mean,
If you had shtetlich all over, before the Second World War, you had shtetlich, which were the majority of the people living there were Jewish, so they would put up their own eruv. You had some, very few, that were actually completely Jewish, so for sure over there was no problem. When you went into bigger places, bigger cities, so no, fine, they didn't, they wouldn't carry on Shabbos. On Yom Tov, of course, it's okay to carry. Even without an eruv, it's okay to carry. But again, it's important to stress that you should only be carrying things that you need.
How is it mutter on Yom Tov to carry?
Huh?
How is it mutter on Yom Tov to carry?
Because it's permissible on Yom Tov to do things which have to be which you need to do. So, for example, it's permissible to be able to cook on Yom Tov. It's not as stringent as it is on Shabbos. Right, and that's why it's okay. Things that you need to carry, you can carry. So, for example, you can carry your machzah to shul for Yom Tov. There's no problem with doing that. And even though there's no eruv, right? So you can carry your keys, but you can't carry things that don't need to be carried.
Like umbrella.
An umbrella, which is a din in and of itself, an umbrella about whether you can or whether you can't use an umbrella. We paskin that you shouldn't use an umbrella on Shabbos. What's the reason for not using an umbrella? Various different things. One of them is asiyas oyal, that you're turning it into something. You're turning it into a tent-like structure when you open the umbrella up. So then the most obvious question is: so if you leave your umbrella open, so why can't you use that on Shabbos when you've got a when you've got an eruv? Why would it not be okay to use that on Shabbos? So various things that are offered. One of them is that if a person might inadvertently come to close it, which is also a problem. The other one is that again we're talking about something called maris ayim, which means that nobody knows that you left your umbrella open before Shabbos came in, and they'll see you wandering around with your with your umbrella on Shabbos morning, and they will very charitably, judge you give you the benefit of the doubt and assume that you must have opened it up that morning and that you're really a no good bum. Yeah.
I had an experience this previous Shabbos when it was raining like it was, and I took at the last minute. I didn't know what to do, so at the last minute I took a dry cleaning bag, and I just stuck it in my pocket and a regular bag you would get at a makolet or something. I was going to use to cover my head. I put it in the other pocket, and after shul, and I was, as I was leaving, I noticed nobody else was doing that, and I didn't know, so I went outside just to make sure there'd be fewer observers, and I put this thing over me. I poked a hole in the dry cleaning bag, pulled it over me, put on a, and it worked. But I'm just curious, what it's not an umbrella, but I was carrying it. They were in my pocket.
You have an eruv, no?
And there's an eruv.
Yeah.
So
I think it's okay. It's not okay to make the hole.
mm-hmm.
If you make the hole before Shabbos,
Yeah.
To put yourself into a dry cleaning bag, it's very innovative.
Why can't you make a hole?
Huh?
Why can't you?
There's a problem again. If it's a tzorech oichel nefesh, so if you need to make a hole in a packet of food, I'm talking about Shabbos.
Yeah.
If you need to open up a packet of food or something, then it's okay to tear open. So long as you're careful with the letters, it's okay to tear something open on Shabbos. If it's not the tzarech oichel nefesh, though, it's not supposed anymore that you're allowed to tear it open. And I'm not convinced that getting dressed up as a piece of dry cleaning
Why is that
is.
Tofer?
It could be a problem of soiser, which is destroying something. I don't know. I mean, again, but wearing a plastic bag over your head, or over your hat, is lots of people do that, and they've even got nowadays some Jew has worked out that you can make money over here, and they sell elasticated plastic hat coverings that somebody's making a buck out of this. That's for sure. I saw they've now got these coats. Have you seen these plastic coats that you could, the black ones that you could wear? and you've got different for depending on whether you wear a hat or a strimal or a spodek, you've got to buy the right model because it's got a hood that you can pull over, but it fits pretty snugly around it. So you got to
Yeah, Betarili, a lot of people use that.
Sorry.
The Betarili, a lot of people use
Yeah. Why not? Listen, at some point that's going to become the height of fashion. I'm sure. I'm sure.
You can dress it up.
Hey,
Everyone can go around the
we're going to
standards.
stop over here. I'm not sure.